Hi. Hi,
So,
Daniel. Hi, Virginia.
I, so
Very
our first question that we have for you, starting right
Okay.
off the bat, is
Okay.
what's your preferred first name?
I Gabe is great. You can use
Okay.
the Gabe. I use Gabriel professionally and for people who I'm meeting and I haven't met before. And either way is great with me. So yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
okay, wonderful.
Well, Gabriel, or Gabe, aka
Yeah.
Gabe, I'd
Yeah.
like you to meet Daniel. Daniel, Gabe.
So good to meet you, Gabe. I mean,
You too.
I like to think of myself as, as I don't even know what to call Mrs. Mullen anymore. Virginia, trying that on, but
Right.
I always like to think of her as my teacher. So meeting
Yeah.
another former student, it's a little off-putting. It's a little,
Yeah.
it's like, what do you mean? There's another?
Why? Yeah, right. I'm the only one, I thought. Yeah.
Yeah. You are, Gabe. Ignore this other guy. I don't know what his deal is.
No,
Well-
but seriously though, so excited to talk with you today,
Great.
Virginia. I don't have to work on this. Virginia sounds so awkward, but Verge, we'll go with
I'll
Verge.
work on it.
Yeah.
Oh, right.
She's had so many great things to say about you, and yeah, thanks for joining us today.
And
Yeah, I
so
appreciate
for
it.
listeners, let me do a little bit of an introduction since they're not here
Okay.
with it. And so Gabe Guerriero is, in my opinion, a visual artist, a really creative person, but he doesn't just do like flat art. He does these really incredible structures, and he's done some stuff for Burning Man for his own interest. And I remember this one thing that had sails or something, and little houses, I don't know, and all kinds of wonderful things. And now he's a professional engineer and doing creative work that way. And so, anyway, so I just think of him as a multi-talented, very creative person. And for people that might be watching us, so Gabe, we want to be really careful that we don't put out visual things that you made that the AI will pick up and
Okay.
replicate. And so we're
Yeah,
going to try and be really, really respectful of that. And so this
Sure.
will just be a flash in the pan. Whoa!
Oh, cool.
This was an art book that Gabe made a long time ago, and this is one of my favorite pictures. And oh yeah, you don't get to see it for very long. So it has motion to it, but that was really cool. The whole book was handmade. And another piece of art that I have laying around my house that was Gabe's. This is a portrait. He did a portrait of both my children, which I absolutely love. And they happen to be in the same hallway as this fine piece of artwork that Daniel made when he was 12.
Oh, awesome.
To me.
Nice.
A mouse examining bowling balls.
Anyway, so Daniel doesn't perceive himself as a visual artist anymore. But anyway, so that's he's with us today, and what we thought we'd talk about was creativity.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yes.
how fun.
Yeah.
Thanks for the introduction. Yeah.
Gabe's awesome. That's all I have to say about that.
Did she leave out anything that you would want to add to that if you were introducing yourself?
I wanted to just add that yes, I'm still working as an artist on my sort of night times and evenings, and as a hobby, it sort of fulfills me. And I'm not a registered engineer. I am an architect, a registered architect in California, and I work in Berkeley and do residential architecture throughout the Bay Area right now.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's awesome because
Yeah.
Daniel and I kind of pride ourselves in our misinformation. So I'm glad you could
No worries.
straighten that out. Right
That's okay. No problem.
Great. Well,
Yeah.
how long have you been working actively as an architect then?
Yeah, I started my grad school architecture journey really when I was about 29. So like 13, 14 years ago, and got my master's degree here in San Francisco, California College of the Arts. And I've been working in architecture since I got out of school for the last 12 years, really.
Cool.
Yeah, 11, 12 years. I've worked a lot in San Francisco for with Mason Kirby as a friend of mine and a colleague now, and we've done a lot of residential projects together. And now I'm on my own. I have my own business, and I work. I call it Guerriero Studios, and it is both a place for me to introduce clients to my work as an architect and sometimes my artwork as well. So it's sort of it is a dual purpose.
Wonderful.
I have a grandniece that is going through college right now, I think in Utah, as an architect. And so I was lucky enough to spend some time with her last week. And I said, oh, and I'm going to be talking to Gabe. You know, she doesn't know who you are, but I'm like excited. And I said, what question would you ask him? You know, so this is coming from a 21-year-old who's studying to be an architect. And she said, where does he go or what does he do when he runs out of ideas and the well feels a little dry? And so that's her question for you.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Great.
That's a wonderful question.
Yeah, that is a good question. I like that one. I will do a whole variety of things when I run out of inspiration. Sometimes it's a matter of just going on a walk and looking around the environment and kind of trying to find structures or buildings that are interesting and points of interest. And I'll go through my photos sometimes and be like, oh, there were some ideas in there, or my sketches to find some of my older ideas and bring them up. It's kind of refreshing my memory, really. And books are a huge reference, or having a library of books or going to the library really helps sort of give me a sense of like newness and wonder, because the work can be it can vary so much. And I also look for inspiration online. I have a variety of sites that I like to go to look for architecture that's being built all over the world. I look for architecture in Europe and in Australia and Japan and other countries, really. And that helps me, it gives me a new outlook on what's possible. And it sort of sparks my creative process, really. Yeah. Yeah.
How is that the same or different for you, Daniel? Daniel's a writer currently.
Or, aspiring, I should say. Well, definitely, physical exercise is definitely helpful for me. So, where you started, where you get out, get a walk, look in new places for inspiration. It's a frustrating moment for me right now, creatively, to be honest. I move through cycles, and sometimes I can't turn it off. And I'll go and go and go. I hardly sleep. But then I'm in one of the down periods right now, and I kind of feel like nothing's inspiring to me in this particular moment. And I don't know that I really have the answer for that. I feel like ultimately I just have to keep showing up and trust that eventually that the muse will reappear. But it can be very frustrating for me, at least. What about you? I mean, you're Verge.
Well, the good news for me is that I always have like a gazillion ideas. And so I'll leave one idea. Like, it was really hard. I have not had this experience yet where it was hard to stop what I was doing and get ready for the podcast. But there was another former student that Daniel knows, Josh Gatlin, and he drove me out to Bridgeville yesterday along with Jesse Wheeler, and we were working on the project on Highway 36 that I'm working on. And that was just so exciting and so invigorating. And, Josh is just so full of energy, and it was really inspiring. So today I actually got up and I was working on that and finishing up stuff from yesterday. I was like, I don't want to stop. Kind of like you. When I'm in the middle, I could just go and go and go and go. But A lot of times I'll just move to a different project, or if I'm really feeling it, taking my dog for a walk or going to the beach for a walk, especially shoeless, feels great. And sometimes, and a lot of times, Daniel, you and I have talked before about like writing, and I feel like the first part stinks and it's just kind of rusty pipe. Sometimes I'll allow myself just to write a bunch of trash that I can just burn, and then eventually something will come.
Well, Gabe, what I wanted to ask you based on your response, and this is, based on my own personal experience. So you said sometimes you'll go back through notebooks of work you've done. I don't know how far back that may or may not go. For me, when I do that, I'll find stuff that I've completely forgotten about. I'll also find things that I'll remember having done and I will remember having thought that it wasn't that good at the time, that there was nothing special about it. But then I'll somehow re-encounter it months, sometimes years later, and all of a sudden it's like this big, bright, shining light. It's like, wow, who did this? Like, I see it now, and I almost can't even believe that it's something that I was involved with. And that'll be a really inspiring. It's inspiring on multiple levels for me, because it kind of reminds me that I can. I struggle with that, like just the belief that I can produce something that would at least resonate with me, if not anybody else. I don't know if you have similar responses to your own work when you go back through your notebook.
Yeah, I sometimes will find little gems or pieces of inspiration that were at the time, lost, and now I found, and they come up in the work that I'm doing now, and I find that really helpful to refer back and bring in some ideas that I've been kind of banking on and had forgotten about. Definitely works that way.
Well, so when you're generating ideas, how confident do you tend to feel in what you're doing? Or what's, maybe to step back just a little bit, what is your process like? So where do you start? What's it look like?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I have two creative processes that feel somewhat different, because my architectural art process is very prescribed and unique, because I'm taking into account a lot of information, and context and constraints, and I'm using what I've learned to create from experience. On the artistic side, it begins a lot more open-ended, and there's so many fewer constraints, and I'm learning that I'm using my art sort of venue to let go of all the constraints and create with much more fluidity and freedom than I would typically have doing architecture. So it feels now like a very different process. And I do
Do those two merge, or are these completely different? Do you keep them separate?
I merge them, and then I split them apart, and I merge them. I think that they don't like the artwork that I'm doing personally doesn't really show up in the architecture necessarily, like what I've created. But the sort of thoughts and the ideas around materiality and finishes and sort of the way that the space works in architecture, it sort of relates to what I'm doing in my artwork. For example, I'm really interested in lighting, and so I started to really bring in my lighting ideas into my artwork. So, and in both cases, they're kind of inspirational pieces. So I've been doing illuminated art pieces, if you will, and integrating microcontrollers and LEDs into my artwork. And so you get to use our lighting and daylighting in architecture too. So it is a crossover point.
When you
There
say
is,
integrating microprocessors, is that what you said?
yeah,
Well,
yeah,
what does that actually mean for those of us who
yeah.
don't know, which might be this guy?
Yeah. So, for example, all of the color changing LEDs that we currently use in in houses, even anything that changes color has to be controlled by a little processor, and it's basically a chip that has a program on it, and it tells the LEDs what color to change to. Nowadays, anyone can purchase these little controllers and program the lights to do whatever you want them to do. So there's the software and code that you learn to make those modulations and changes to the light, and the whole range of different code languages that one can learn. I'm not particularly good at the code portion of it, but I have learned some enough to really sort of play with it.
Cool.
Yeah, yeah.
When I was talking to Patty Kendrick about, these are all names you don't know, but I was talking to everybody about that. We're going to talk today. And
Yeah.
anyway, and so I was asking her about creativity, and she says that she thought when she's being creative, that she wants, that she thinks that it has to be novel, and she wants it to delight others. Are either of those things in your mind when you're creating stuff?
Oh, no, not at all. It has to delight me, most particularly. I don't really care what other people think.
I love it.
And maybe the byproduct is that people might like the things that I'm creating. But yeah, I have to be really excited and engaged with the work that I'm doing, and the the palette, the materials, the kind of ideas that are coming up, and whatever really is exciting me at the time is usually what I'm gonna go and do.
I love
Yeah.
that about you.
Thanks. Yeah. I think for one, it's made my work very kind of all over too. I've kind of changed like you. I have definitely changed my palette and my materials. Sort of have a whole bunch of different ideas that I'm kind of playing with. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. And speak to to novelty. She said she thinks that being creative is creating something that's never been made before.
Mm.
I don't know that.
I think I strive to do something that's never been done before in some cases. Yes. I mean, I think that um I don't stress too much about making sure or emphasizing the fact that I want it to be novel and new, something that's new. Um but I get what your friend is saying. It's sort of like, well, I want to create something that's never been done. Why not? Yeah, some of the work I'm doing now is really quite maybe unusual. Like I'm doing a painting that has resin layers and acrylic, and then I'm putting LEDs into it, so eventually it's going to be kind of a glowing painting.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. And I haven't found artists that are doing this yet. Maybe there are, but I don't go out and look for things that have been done and try and replicate them either.
Well, they're going to be doing it after they heard that idea.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I used to do card making with your mom and other friends of mine, and I still feel the creative process, even though I'm maybe doing a technique I've done before or making a similar card to something I've done before. It still scratches that itch of just making something and creating, where there was just a bunch of paper laying on the table. All of a sudden, there's something different. And I've sometimes tried to recreate stuff I've already made because I liked it so much, and that doesn't usually pan out. But yeah, it doesn't have to be novel for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
But Patty's question for you now, after all that, is
Okay.
what drives your creativity?
What drives my creativity?
Drives.
What drives it? Um, hmm, I, well, let's see. I'm,
Just a minute, while you're thinking,
yeah, go ahead.
perhaps, Daniel, you should be thinking about the answer to that as well.
Yeah.
Drives your creativity.
If only someone could tell me, I could really use that help right now. I think I have some rather odd beliefs about that. Maybe they're not that odd, but my inclination would be to turn that question on its head and suggest that perhaps creativity is what drives me, as opposed to what in me might drive the creativity. I think there are there's people of all different dispositions, and I've worked with a lot of artists over the years. And the ones that just consistently came up with the most compelling stuff, it didn't seem like it was something that they were doing so much as it was something that was happening to them. If that makes any sense to you. And I think it speaks to, like a flow state type experience, where somebody just becomes fully immersed in something that I don't know that it can necessarily be fully vocalized. And that's why you're an artist, that there's something that needs to be expressed that perhaps can't be spoken. It has to come out through, it has to be manifested through the artist somehow. I don't know.
Yeah, definitely. I resonate with that. I certainly know too that my process, when you start an art project or you start a creative endeavor, there is the mystery of the end result that you really don't know. Like what drives me is like, let's find out what the end result will be. Where will the stopping point be? And you don't know where it's going to end up, but you want to start this journey. And it's very exciting because, you know that it will change, whether you like it or not. Like, the project and the ideas and the colors, the materials are going to change, and you're just going to have to let go.
Absolutely, yeah.
And trust that what you're creating is going to sort of just come into the world.
Trust is such a beautiful word to use to describe it. Like that definitely resonates with me. I think you're absolutely right. And I feel like when people hold on too tight to a preconceived idea, it kind of shuts out everything that could happen, essentially. And it's all of what is possible that's still magical in a truly artistic process, right?
Well, the word phrase that you used that popped out at me was when you said end product. And as both of you know, I spent 31 years teaching, and I got in trouble, not trouble, but spoken to several times by parents and administrators. They'd be like, where is this going? You'll spend a lot of time like doing this stuff. And my whole life, I've just been so into the process and the joy of the process and hanging out in the process and not really ever caring about an end product that I was taken to task a few times for that. We should bring, there should be something you can tangible at the end. And
well, quite possibly, maybe, the reason, you were such an influential teacher for me, you affected me the way you did, and perhaps for Gabe too. It has something to do with that, investing in the process as opposed to the outcome. And I think that largely that's missing in the education system, that there's too much emphasis on teaching people what to think as opposed to how to think, right? And that's the same thing we're talking about, right? Like the process is the how, as opposed to the what being the outcome.
Well, I think Gabe came along about 10 years after our experience. And so by then, a lot of people had spoken to me about there should be an end to things. so I maybe wasn't quite as lost in the process then, but it's hard to see ourselves, I don't know.
Yeah.
I'd really like to go back and just kind of see myself, as that proverbial fly on the wall. I, I don't know if I could take it. I don't know if I could look.
I don't know if it, yeah, maybe none of us could take it going back and seeing
Yeah,
that.
really.
Do you know, Gabe, by
Yeah.
chance, have you ever encountered Boyd Vardy, or he wrote this book called The Lion Tracker's Guide to Life?
I haven't. No.
Okay, he's got a bunch of beautiful quotes in it. I keep telling Verge here that we're going to go over that book together because it's so good. It's such a quick, easy read, and I feel like everybody should have it. And there's so many inspiring ideas in there, and one of them, a quote that I just can't say often enough, is one of his suggestions is invest in discoveries as opposed to outcomes. So it's very much what we're talking about here. And I just love that approach. It's about fostering curiosity in everything you do, letting go of, any notion of what it's supposed to be or where it's supposed to go, and just, again, invest in process, right? So I love that.
Yeah, definitely. I do too. I think that, I don't know if I were to, peer into my seventh grade self and be able to understand what process was going on, but there was an available creative sort of energy in my education as a kid and in my home. My dad was an artist and still is an artist, so my family was a huge inspiration for me to sort of pursue creative and endeavors, and had always felt like it was important to explore things and know that it doesn't need to, you don't need to produce something to sell, but rather just make something for fun, and along the way you will discover those sort of bits of experience and information and inspiration on the journey.
Yeah, absolutely. As you think back over everything you've created, and maybe the pieces that, it sounds very much as it should be, that your process starts with you, that it's something about that you're trying to fulfill something in yourself with your process. But if we step past that and you were to consider the pieces that maybe have had the most profound effect on people other than yourself, number one, have you ever thought about that and taken a look and considered your process, like how you got to those pieces that seem to affect the people around you?
Yeah, do I made a in my 20s, I made a book that was essentially a journal, more or less, but it was visually sort of it wasn't a written journal so much as it was a visual one.
Oh, wow.
And it had pages of writing and imagery and drawings, all kinds of collage.
Like the
And
Red Book.
it flowed between sort of pages, and it had a sort of story. And I've shown that to many people over the years, and it has been a source of just like awe and wonder for people. And I look at that process as having regular touch-in points with a project, and just keep going, just keep creating. And because it was a thing that took so long, it was something I did for years. It was just like, oh wow, just keep working on this project and keep going with it until you've gotten to the end of it. And there's a commitment to the process that I think it takes for a creative person to get to a place that you're like, oh, I've made this thing that really, has affected people in my life. So I feel, creating a framework for your process is really it can be an important, I think it can be quite important, really, to sort of push your work forward or to like kind of get it to the next level, you know, as you said, like, how do you how do you level up your work, you know? And I think if you kind of set up a framework and then start a process, it will, inevitably lead to something, you know. I really do believe that will happen, you know. Um,
Well, it comes back to trust again, like you were saying earlier, right? You have to trust that it will show itself to you at some
yeah,
point. You may not understand it as you're going.
yeah,
You just gotta, yeah. I love that.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
How do you know? How do you know when a particular piece is finished?
I usually it's sort of uncomfortable to keep working on it, and it's sort of at a place where it's at a place where if you keep trying to tweak it or mess with it or change it, it will kind of um it will uh it will lose its sort of state of its current state, right? But you got it to to a state that looks interesting or invigorating, and you could just let it go and just be it's done, you know, or you could keep going. And so the risk is like you're gonna screw up what you just created. So um
Do you
you
feel
know,
like have you? Certainly, I mean, that's probably happened, right? You've got too far, and that's how in retrospect you So are there pieces you still remember where you're like, I loved this one at this one point, and I took it too far.
yeah, oh totally. I feel like I've done that on a lot of projects where there's like a piece that's gotten to a place and I could have stopped, but I just kept going, you know, and it gets overworked maybe or um, sort of mentally too, um, sort of, it got too complicated, right? It needs to be simplified. And so there's a sense of like, um, I don't know. That's a really complicated sort of process to sort of know when to stop, because you could keep a painting going inevitably for infinity. Really, you keep going on one painting.
Yeah, yeah.
I asked Ray Raphael, who's a writer, because I've been doing like research, historical fiction, not historical fiction, but history. And I said, when will I know I'm done? Because the fair book, I'd worked on the fair book for 10 years, you know, interviewing people and coming. And Ray just says, oh, you'll know. Thinking, well, that was helpful. But as it turned out, I did know. And I think it's when I was just like, I got a little tired of it. This isn't exciting to me anymore. I need to just stop and set it aside and come back later when I'm going to be excited about it again. Do you have any artwork that's kind of like in the closet waiting till you're excited about it again?
Totally, yes. I do. I do have projects just like that. They're like, oh, I'm gonna have to pick that up again. I know I'm gonna get to it eventually, and so I'm not doing it right now. I'm doing something else.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you
Yeah.
good about coming back to those? Does that actually happen? Like, do you come back and
Yeah, either I need to either make a decision. It's like it's gonna take up space in my house or in my place or in my studio, and so I just want to, you know, let it go if it's no longer working for me, or I'm gonna keep going, you know, keep working on it. And you know, I've started making some smaller jewelry pieces that are actually not too hard to sort of store. In a sense, they're not giant pieces, right? And so this sort of idea of like making smaller jewelry pieces is really kind of fun and attractive, to have a whole bunch of ideas that are small. And um, I have been creating pieces that start to, uh, I can pick them up quite easily, and I put them down for a while and pick them up later, um, and that's helpful. That's helpful for sure. For sure. I think I'm going through a creative process with a collective called Air Pusher Collective. We're a Burning Man camp, and we actually have been trying to figure out what to do about some of our big giant pieces of art. We have a giant airship looking art car, and it needs a lot of work and maintenance, and it also needs this sort of artistic vision. And the whole idea of storing something huge, massive, is it holds space. It doesn't create space for you to make something. So I strongly believe in like either keep working on what you've got or like move it out so you can make room for something new.
So my cousin made a miniature night bus from Harry Potter, 3 stories. She made it on a very large golf cart, not the usual golf cart, but an extended length one.
Yeah.
And it's incredible because you can get, I don't know, 9 or 10 people in there on the different levels because it's 3 stories high and it's got lights that come around. And she welded it. I mean, with
Nice.
like you were saying, with a group of people in Oakland. And I guess in Oakland, there's a lot of places where, I don't know what to call them, warehouses, I guess, where artists are working and storing things, but that takes time and money and,
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Store
Yeah.
tools, time, money, groups of people to work on it and maintain it. Yeah. It's a whole different project for sure. Yeah.
and then, you have that collaboration, but there's only one thing at the end, and whose is it? And how do you share it? Or how do you value it to have one person have it? Or
Right. Yeah. Yeah. We had that problem a few years ago. So our collective decided we would start a nonprofit organization, and we got our 501c3, and then we were able to transfer it over into an organization, which allows us actually to fundraise and make money. And the asset that we have is an airship vehicle that it has to get registered, and it's not owned by any one person. Fortunately, it's a collective of people. So a lot of folks in the Bay Area and in Oakland, and they kind of solve it like that, and that's the best scenario, as opposed to one person owning a ship or a vehicle like that. It makes for a much better, more collaborative environment too for the work.
yeah, when you take the airship to Burning Man, is it something people can ride in?
Yeah, we can take about 30 people at a time on our
Wow.
on our airship. Yeah. It has a good amount of capacity for folks to join us. We pick up people all along our journey and take them all over Burning Man. It's a really quite fun process. It's really fun to be part of that whole like journey of like bringing people who have never seen it before.
I'm one of those people. Never been to Burning Man. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So what am I missing? Have you been out there, Birch?
No, but I've seen a lot of pictures from Heather.
Okay.
But I just think of it as this incredible explosion of creativity and art that groups of people are participating in.
So it sounds like not everything is burnt, right? Because that's kind of isn't it where that's where the name comes from, right? Isn't there the main, well, you tell me. I don't know. I haven't been there. There is a burning of art, isn't there?
Yeah, there are definitely pieces of art that are burned, and there is a man structure made out of wood that is burnt at the end of the festival. There's a temple, a sort of sacred piece of architecture that is also built and burnt, and there's a few other pieces. There aren't as many burned pieces as there used to be, but many of the pieces are interactive art pieces that you can climb on or interact with. And the scale is just massive, like just really big pieces of work, pieces of art. So, yeah, you're right, Virginia. It does feel that way. Like all kinds of creative ideas. Yeah.
So when you come back from that, aside from being having sand in all your orifices, is there do you have a huge explosion of creativity after that? After seeing everything that's out there and all the diversity?
I absolutely do. Yeah, it lasts for a long time. The sort of the ideas and the feelings and the emotions of being there, the interactions I've had with people, and spending time with family and with friends and with lovers. It's just a beautiful experience to be there, and I bring it with me after the burn for months and months. And I think about things that I saw, and I I want to bring it into what I'm doing in my daily life. It's some of the ideas or some of the ways of celebrating and living and dancing. We want to sort of continue on in a way, sort of the Burning Man life style, and kind of bring it into our daily life in what ways we can. So there are groups here that attempt to do that. So we like to get together and have events and do things like that. So it's fun. It's a really fun experience. So I recommend it if you have a chance and you want to go.
So there you go, Daniel. That's what you need to do to get out of your slump.
There you go.
Right? Yeah. There you go.
That'll shake you up, buddy.
I guarantee it.
Yeah, it would definitely shake me up. That would.
We could go together.
Well, apparently, maybe we can ride on the airship. Tell us about the airship. Just the sound of it is intriguing.
Yeah, it was conceived on an old 1987 Dodge truck dually and built. A steel frame was built to make it look like a sort of steampunk looking ship, like with a hull. And then there was a platform that was built and constructed over the truck with a stairway that leads you up, and you kind of get up and you can see out over the playa. You can kind of get a view. And there's like the seating and a cuddle space at the top where people hang out and lie down. And then there are these big steel arms that we constructed that hold an air balloon. And the balloon is 60 feet long, or maybe 50 feet long by about, 20 feet wide. And it has lights inside, and it basically creates a huge shade area. And we fill it with air. It's just filled with, it has a couple of small fans that keep it inflated throughout the journey that we have it going. And it's massive when you see it. It feels really like dramatic. And
do you keep it stationary while it's there, or is it moving around?
We move it around. It is officially one of the it's a licensed vehicle that we drive around. And we have
to be massive. That's a huge vehicle to be driving around with a lot of people around it too, right?
For sure. So yeah, we have a crew of 5 people that manage the driving around the playa, with 2 people on bikes and 1 person sort of letting people on and off, and another person making sure the balloon is in good shape. So there's a driver, and that's our crew that takes it around the playa. It's 5 miles an hour, so we're driving real slow. It's not too hard.
Did you ever have any experience with the Kinetic Sculpture Race?
Yeah, so I think I was in 5th grade.
Oh, with Mike Carroll?
With Mike Carroll, and we built we called it the Turbo Turtle. It was like a turtle-shaped bicycle that had some big floats on the sides, like a tandem bicycle, I think. And there was a group of kids that we all got involved in Bridgeville and put together the pieces and the elements, and all our dads got together to help put it together. yeah, we did a Kinetic Sculpture Race.
So, and so for people that maybe aren't familiar with that, so you went up to Arcata, you took this up to Arcata, and then what happened?
Well, I mean, some of the kids got to ride it, or passage along with the bicycle with the sculpture. But yeah, we had parental help in getting it all the way from Arcata to Ferndale on the 3-day travel. The trip, getting it across the bay, getting it through, and I think um we may have camped with it on some occasions, you know and yeah, we did it. Did a lot of pushing. I remember pushing it because it
Through the sand,
didn't
probably.
quite. Yeah, like it didn't quite like sand so much. It wasn't like super designed in that way for the extreme environments that your bikes have to go through in the Kinetic Sculpture Race. But it was fun and fascinating, and a really like proud moment for us to do that.
Yeah. Well, and it reminds me of the creativity that you're talking about at Burning Man. Some of the kinetic sculptures that come are really quite something.
They are.
They
They're
don't hold 30
fascinating.
people generally, but
Yeah, some
yeah,
some hold more. A lot of them hold less. But
yeah.
yeah, I mean, even I got to see Dwayne Flatmo this year, just to see some of his work. Who's an artist in Humboldt, and he does this amazing kinetic sort of sculpture called El Pulpo, which is a sort of fire articulating octopus, and is on an art car, and it drives around. It's fascinating. Um, and yeah, as far as like kinetic sculptures, there are so many there now that people bring. It's quite fascinating.
What's coming next for you, Gabe? What are you working on that you might want to share with the world?
Yeah, I have a couple of things that I'm sort of focused on right now. I guess I'm for one, I'm focused on building my business, and and bringing in community members and meeting people, so that I'm sort of generating content and creating a presence online so people can find me.
What's the name of it again?
Guerrero Studios. Guerrero Studios. So I'm doing a lot of business development stuff right now, which I'm also interested in creating videos like this. So it was really quite nice to get your invitation. I'm thinking about how to sort of present projects or information to people and help people with their renovation projects. So I'm kind of working on that a lot lately, and I have a painting that I'm doing as the sort of like creative stuff that feels a lot more loose and free. So I have a painting that I'm working on. I can show you if you want to see a little glimpse of it.
How cool is
Oh,
that?
wow.
That's
Oh,
amazing.
there you go. You can kind of see it.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
That
Yeah,
really
this
is.
is I'm doing some abstract work. It's very like fluid and spatial with layers of acrylic and resin. Um,
I can tell that it's got resin on it or something.
yeah, you can kind of
It
see how
looks
it's
shiny and smooth.
super
I want to
shiny.
touch it.
Yeah, you can kind of see the reflection in it. Exactly. Yeah, yeah.
How much time do you have into a piece like this already?
Oh, I don't know. I've put maybe I want to say maybe 20 hours on it. 20 hours, 24 hours, 20, 30 hours. I don't remember really.
Well, I'd imagine you have layers that need to dry before.
Yeah, so I've been working on it for maybe 3 months.
Right. Yeah.
I am on and off throughout. Now, yes, the layers go on and then they kind of dry, and then I put some paint onto it and put some more layers on it.
That's beautiful.
And then I'm carving out the back of it. So there will be some thin LEDs that will go into the back of the painting and kind of allow it to glow from behind.
Wow.
Yeah. So
That's
that's
really
that
cool.
piece.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Oh, wow.
That's
Yeah.
wonderful.
So that's what I'm up to right now. It's been keeping me excited. Yeah. definitely. These are some of the smaller pieces that I've put on hold. These are like things I haven't been making lately, but this is like a necklace, essentially. You know, it has
Oh, it lights up.
actually you can see it. It does light up. Can't really see it.
Oh,
It's
a
too
little bit.
bright.
I can see it a little bit at least.
Yeah, you can see it a little bit for
Yeah.
sure.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's
and
great.
so these are resin sculptures that I've been building with molds. We make these like silicone molds.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that I can replicate those designs and make more of them. You know,
Yeah. How long have you been doing pieces like that, like jewelry?
I started doing jewelry maybe 3 or 4 years ago.
It's
Yeah,
fairly recent then. Yeah, but it's,
yeah, it's new. Yeah, it is new. It's fun and new side, new adventure. Really.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
cool. I like it.
In terms of creativity, I think we've kind of come to the end of that. Unless you guys have more to say about it. What do you think?
I do have
I'd
one.
say, yeah, I have a couple of thoughts, and I think that there's the creativity that takes the regularity and the work of being creative, and then there's the reward of actually creating something. And I find that um, there's a real value in just making the commitment to doing the work, even if it's not really exciting. Like maybe you're not quite excited about it, or you're really tripped. You're not sure if it's going to look good. Even if you're not sure it's going to look good, keep doing it. And I know that it will lead you somewhere. So if I were to say, as far as creativity goes, um, I find it to be important to like take the time in your life to make that process and to make time for you to sort of discover the work rather than try and make something and get to the end of a piece, but just try and commit to a process and a journey. And it's really that's where your work will come out, I think, quite beautifully.
I like that. I realized I glanced at my notes real quick, and I realized I had one more question. I was curious what your thoughts might be. This moment that we find ourselves in, where the world's changing really quick, right? Faster every day. And when we start looking at artificial intelligence and what that is capable of, do you have any thoughts on that? How it's has it
Yeah, I have so many thoughts, and I really have been interested in this as a topic. I'm engaged in the world of AI in a way. I'm testing it. I'm just trying it to see what it does. And I'm also fighting it because there is humanity that is lost in the work that is generated from the AI machines. There's a sense of real loss, in my opinion. There's a creative loss that we are beginning to sort of experience as artists, especially as artists. That I'm terrified of, really, the kind of work that is actually being generated. I went to an art show a couple of months ago in Oakland where an artist basically printed AI images and put them in the gallery. It was infuriating to me.
yeah.
It was absolutely infuriating because it was such a ruthless uh, sort of overuse and like claim that it's just another tool, as though you're using a paintbrush to make these designs, these art pieces. And I was so offended. I stormed out and argued with people online, and created a dialogue that was really like quite impassioned. And uh,
I'm
think that
I'm right there with you. I felt myself get a little enraged just as you relayed it.
So I'm so careful about what it needs to do. I what it should be able to do. And I don't want AI to sort of take the place of artists and painters for sure. That's it would be a huge loss for us if we begin to sort of depend on it in that way. And I think it helps catalyze some of the early design ideas in the work that I'm doing as an artist, as an architect, really. It works well for design work because we're working with so much constraints, and it's not a final product either. Like, you're not using the AI to build you the house. Like, it's
Right.
definitely just the sort of beginning points for you to sort of test ideas. So it's great for prototyping. Great for writing a paragraph that you don't want to write. It's great for summarizing a meeting. And in the context that you use AI in a very sort of prescribed formal way, I think it makes sense to sort of, test it, and also be careful of it, because we don't really know what the follow-on effects of this tool will lead us to. We just don't know. It's already done so much damage to our creative communities, really.
Yeah.
Well, it's hard for me to imagine, like, just thinking about your dad's artwork. It's really hard for me to imagine that, like, AI could produce that kind of stuff. But he's done, I mean,
Yeah. I mean, you would be surprised. You would be surprised.
I wonder if you're still okay for time, if I could press you on a couple, just get your opinion on a few things around this. So, my feelings seem to mirror yours. If we were, maybe we start with, what is art to you? So, and as we define art, is, the follow up to that is, can something created by AI be considered art? According to your definition, you might say.
Oh, what is art is one question, and what is art is one sort of question. I'd say, can AI create art? Hmm.
They're two big questions, right? That's a lot. I'm sorry.
Yeah. I will put it this way. I think AI can create art. I do think it can. It can create art. It can create visual images. It can create songs. It can create music. It has the ability to create art. And I'm particularly against certain types of artwork that is created by AI and used in a way to sort of monetize and economize and make things more efficient and sell. I mean, there's something that's actually really, I think, ethically wrong with art that is being produced by machines to then like go out and like try and make a living.
Yeah. Well, what do you think? So just to look back at what we were discussing a little bit earlier, that we were talking about the importance of focusing on process as opposed to ends. Doesn't AI eliminate process essentially? It moves exponentially faster than any human ever can, networking all these things so fast that ultimately the journey is gone as far as we're concerned. It does whatever it does in the blink of an eye. And I,
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it will never be able to create an airship, you know. There, we're not there. It's never going to be able to create like a, a giant sculpture, you know. So I would argue that real artists now have an opportunity, right? They have an opportunity to sort of say, well, my art is now so void of any AI. It has to be like physically manifested from a a piece of stone or carved out of wood, or it has to be like built out of steel, and it like begins to bring validity to the humanity and the creative process that we are and who are building it. So I think it will create a sort of divide where there's sort of like the imagery, the image generation, and the artists that are going to drop the image generation and kind of move out of sort of two-dimensional stuff because of the 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 implicit problems that we're going to have, where people are going to look at a painting and think it's a painting, but it's actually not.
Yeah. Well, and I not to be a little rain cloud, but this is just the beginning for AI too, right? And so we're, if you, what comes to mind right away as I was listening to you is we already have 3D printers. That's gonna keep AI is essentially going to keep developing itself at this point, and it will be entering a multi-dimensional space. Yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't purport to have any answers here. I think it's a lot to chew on.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. It is. It's moving very fast, and yeah, there are a whole range of, I think, risks and issues with the image generation sort of AI that we are faced with nowadays. So yeah, I'm
Well, not to press you on something if you don't want to answer it, but the first part that kind of got left out that I was hoping you'd start with is your particular definition of what art is, because I think depending on how we define it, and I maybe what AI produces isn't art. And maybe if we can find, if we can pinpoint, what does make art, maybe that's where we put our energy, as that's our strength, right? It's something to the human experience that an artificial intelligence will may be able to replicate, but would never be able to genuinely produce.
yeah, yeah. I mean, the question of what art is or what art could be, I think it's a valid sort of quandary at this stage for sure. I think that we're faced with some of the questions that some of the modern artists had, and those postmodernists. They were pushing us to think like, well, what is art? What could art be? And Duchamp puts a urinal in the gallery and signs his name, and it's like, of course, this is a piece of art.
Uh,
And and so the question of what is art, well, anything can be art. Absolutely anything can be art
yeah.
if you wanted to be art. So you know uh, I think we as observers and experiences, those who have experiences of the world, need to develop an opinion. We need to develop a strong case for what we believe is good art. We need to buy good art. We need to go and see good art and experience it for ourselves, and say to those artists and those folks, like, this is beautiful, this is good, this is valid, this is the work that should be promoted, right? And I think that's really important part of our role as folks, or as people who are interested in art and want to participate in the world in that way. So go to the museum, go to the gallery, go see a show, and support them. because you're voting for them. You're out there like making sure that you're seeing them. By going and seeing it, you are in fact like, bringing it into the world by experiencing it. So, um, yeah, I think that's where art is, and where I think art makes sense to me. That's where it makes sense to me. So I make sure to go to see it.
Yeah.
There are festivals that I go to specifically so I can go and see the art, the things that people are making in my community and in the world, So it's like an act of observation.
So, other than Burning Man, are there particular festivals that are the annual occurrence?
Oh, yeah. I love the Autumn Lights Festival, which happens in October in Oakland. They bring in it's a nighttime festival, all ages, and just amazing light art. Everything is lit up, and you go at night, to experience people's art pieces and their installations of all sizes and shapes. And you walk around the botanical gardens in Oakland. They set them up in the botanical gardens. It's all outside. It's fantastic. So the Autumn Lights Festival is amazing for that. I, of course, like to go to museums and galleries in San Francisco. I like to go to the events that our friends and burners are putting on locally as well. Some of us will set up our art cars or set up our art pieces for special occasions, and those are events that are quite amazing. So organizations like the Crucible in Oakland have huge spaces where artists get to make things, and they'll have shows, displays, and craft fairs where people sell their goods, Yeah, I think those are some of the places I would go to on an annual basis,
I think Rachel Owen, my friend, was here this last week, and we were talking about AI, and she knows that I write, and she was talking about AI taking over in terms of writing, and she says, "Yeah, I'm not worried about that because the AI is able to read everything, and everything that's out there isn't good writing, and whatever good writing is, and it will be so polluted into mediocrity that we don't need to worry about AI taking over as the new novels or the new ideas."
Part of my worry, I don't know that I entirely agree with that, but my worry is that what happens over time is that we lose right now we have a leading position. AI is following us, essentially, is what you're talking about, right? AI would be pulling from human contributions that are out there. But that is going to change. Like, people are getting more and more lazy about what they consume. And
Right.
And so
they're going to consume more AI written work. And, I've read a bit of it, and it is a little awkward. And so it's going to read that and replicate that, and then read more of that, and then replicate that, and then read more of that. And so I think that there might be a difference in the written word than there might be in the visual. I don't know.
Well, so ultimately, the zeitgeist, right? Like culture, it's always changing, right? It's always morphing, and we're very much a product of our environment, and that's what I worry about, losing the lead on this. That AI essentially is producing so much content so fast that essentially people start learning more from, learning's the wrong word. We just start parroting AI as opposed to thinking for ourselves. And we see that, even prior to AI, that's just whatever dominant ideas take over in a culture. Like most people won't think for themselves; they just follow whatever those dominant ideas are. And I mean that's part of what I worry about with AI in general is that we're essentially going to be displaced. Like we're I don't know. It's a big subject, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I resonate with what you said for sure. Yeah, yeah. I worry too.
Well, not to cut anyone off, but
Well, wait.
yeah.
I have something to ask
Yeah.
Gabe.
Yeah.
And you don't have to answer, Gabe.
Okay.
My question is, when you went to the art show that was all AI generated, which was outrageous, and I shared in your indignation, were the images visually pleasing?
I think they were.
Or visually interesting, perhaps would be a better term.
I think they were visually. They were not interesting to me. They were not interesting to me. I think um, there were elements of collage and drawings and colors that felt somewhat under considered, maybe not as there was a missing sense of accident in them.
Ooh, well phrased. Nice.
I think that wraps it up for me. How are you all feeling?
It was really wonderful to have a conversation with you both. Yeah, this has been really great. Thank you.
Well,
for
it's
having
been
me
so
on.
fun to see you and, as your man self and actually get to have a conversation with you. Because,
Exactly.
when we see each other in a large group, it's just mostly, hi, oh, good
Yeah.
to see
I know.
So-
So true. So true. Yeah,
So
absolutely.
it was really nice to hear some of your thoughts.
Yeah,
Well,
absolutely. And definitely a pleasure to meet you. Maybe I'll get a chance to meet you in person one of these days when I'm out on the West Coast.
Well,
Awesome.
when we go to
Maybe-
Autumn Lights together,
That's what I was
Daniel,
just about
go
to say.
Autumn
It'll be
Lights.
Autumn Lights, or we'll try to hitch a ride on the airship. Is that what it's officially
Yeah.
called? Yeah, I do.
You can find us with Air Pusher Collective is our group. Air Pusher Collective.
Air Pusher Collective
Yes.
at GuerreroStudios.com.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
That's right.
All right.
That's right.
Anybody else we need to give a quick shout out to?
I think that's it for now.
All right.
Yeah. Thank
Very
you.
good. Well, it's been a pleasure. Thanks so much for indulging us, and I'll look forward to
Yeah,
meeting.
thanks for your time and being willing to do this. It was our first
Yeah.
foray into a third person. It'll be interesting to see how it all comes together.
Great. Wonderful.
Absolutely.
All right.
Have a good afternoon.
All right. Bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
See ya.